I want you to think about how you felt when you saw the news this week. The United States just bombed Iran. Social media explodes. Headlines are screaming World War III. People are panicking. Phones are pinging and buzzing with the breaking news. And within hours, millions of people around the world were consuming that fear, sharing it, and amplifying it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it isn't serious because it's very serious. That's why I'm making this follow-up video to yesterday's. But what I want to ask you today is something a little bit different. What are you doing with that fear? Are you processing it consciously, or are you absorbing it without realizing it, letting it settle into your body, your nervous system, and your energetic field? Because there's an enormous difference between being informed and being infected by fear. And today we're going to talk about that difference. We're going to talk about what science says fear does to your body and to the world around you. And most importantly, we're going to talk about what you can do right now, today, to be a part of the solution instead of a part of the problem. Because yes, there is a solution and it's closer than what you think. First, let's talk about something most people don't know. Fear is not just an emotion, it's a frequency. And like any other frequency, it transmits. When you enter into a state of fear, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate accelerates and your breathing becomes very shallow. Your brain, this might even be the most important part, your brain enters survival mode, what neuroscientists call flight or flight response. In this state, your brain literally shuts down key areas. The prefrontal cortex, that's the part that's responsible for your critical thinking, your empathy, your rational decision making. All of that gets significantly reduced. In other words, when you are in fear, you can't think clearly. You can't see the full picture, and you cannot find solutions. You can only react. Now, imagine that for a moment, multiply it across millions of people at the same time, millions of nervous systems in a panic mode. And what's even worse, millions of brains with the prefrontal cortex switched off, millions of people unable to think clearly, reacting from fear, and then sharing that fear with others who in turn panic and then share it with even more people. That is what is happening in the world right now. It's not a conspiracy. It's not some evil takeover plan. It is simply the physics of unmanaged collective fear. And social media and the news, all these algorithms, they know it perfectly well. They feed it, they amplify it, because a fearful user is a user that cannot stop scrolling. Fear keeps you trapped on the screen, and that's worth money. That's a money maker. So let's take this one level deeper. The HeartMath Institute, this is a serious research institute with decades of published studies. They have demonstrated something fascinating about the human heart. The heart is not just a pump that moves blood. It is the most powerful electromagnetic generator in the human body. It generates an electromagnetic field that extends 6 to 8 feet outside of your body in every direction. And that field is real, it's measurable, and it responds directly to your emotional state. When you're in fear, anxiety, anger, the field around you becomes chaotic and irregular. Researchers call this cardiac incoherence. And that chaos doesn't just stay inside of you, that would be bad enough, but it actually radiates outward that 6 to 8 feet. It affects the people near you. It affects the atmosphere in every room that you walk into. Maybe you've come home after a terrible day and felt like everyone around you just got into a bad mood for no reason. That's not coincidence. That is your electromagnetic field in action. So now imagine that effect on a global scale. Millions of people in simultaneous cardiac incoherence, millions of chaotic fields radiating outward, entangling, reinforcing each other, creating what some researchers call a collective field of low coherence. And that field, that collective energy, influences the decisions that get made, the leaders that we choose, the wars that we start, the way we treat each other. We are not victims of what is happening in the world. We are active participants in its creation. So the question is, are we participating consciously or not? Now, I want to be very direct here because this is important. Buying into fear Letting yourself be completely swept away by the panic narrative doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone. When you spend hours consuming terrifying news, when you share content from a place of panic, when you get hooked into heated arguments on social media, convinced the end of the world is near, you're not being an informed and responsible citizen. You're being an amplifier of chaos. And you know what? I'm not saying this to blame you. We've all done it. I've done it. I'm telling you this because you need to understand the power that you have. Every time you react from fear, you are adding one more voice to the chorus of chaos. But every time you stay centered, conscious, and in coherence, you are adding a frequency of stability to a field that desperately needs it. It needs your help. Think of it like a disease. There's a fear virus circulating. There is. And you have two options. You can get infected and then infect others, or you can strengthen your immune system so that when fear reaches you, it finds nowhere to take hold. The good news is that strengthening that energetic immune system doesn't require years of meditation or spiritual practice. You know, you don't need a guru. It requires the one thing that we all have direct access to, and that's our heart, because of the electromagnetic capability that it has. Let's talk about heart coherence, because this changes everything. The HeartMath Institute discovered that when a person enters a state of heart coherence, this is a state of stable, ordered, harmonious heart rhythm, extraordinary things happen in the body and beyond. First, inside the body. Blood pressure regulates. The immune system strengthens. Cortisol levels, that's the stress hormone, they drop significantly. The prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain that fear shut down, fully reactivates. So you can think clearly. You can feel empathy. You can make decisions from wisdom instead of from panic. But here's the part that's going to leave you just a little bit speechless. When you are in heart coherence, your electromagnetic field doesn't just stabilize, it becomes coherent, ordered. And that ordered field radiates outwards, literally reorganizing the energetic field of the people around you. HeartMath researchers have documented that a person in heart coherence can synchronize the heart rhythm of other people nearby without saying a single word, without touching them, simply through their presence. One single centered person can literally change the energy of an entire room. Now, what if we could multiply that? 10 people in coherence in a community, 100, 1,000, million people around the world consciously choosing to enter heart coherence instead of collective panic. And then the global field starts to shift. And that's not just theory. That's not just wishful thinking. That's not magic. That's not burying your head in the sand. This is measurable physics. All right, we have the science, so let's get practical. How do you enter heart coherence? Well, it's actually simpler than you might imagine, and I'm going to walk you through the steps right now. The HeartMath Institute has a technique they call the quick coherence technique. It's backed by decades and decades of research, and this is how it works. Step number 1, you bring your attention and your focus to the area of your heart. You don't just think about your heart up here. You feel, you think, you focus on your heart right here. You don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to. Just focus. Direct your attention inward towards the center of your chest. And imagine that your breath is flowing in and out, not from your lungs, not from your mouth or your nose, but directly from your heart. Your heart is breathing. Step 2, breathe slowly and evenly. 5 seconds inhaling, 5 seconds exhaling, no forcing, no tension, just a gentle, steady rhythm. And this you need to do for 1 minute. The third step is while you're breathing this way, you're going to evoke a feeling of gratitude, appreciation, or love. Doesn't have to be something big. The easiest way to do this is to think of a memory. Think of a time where you felt gratitude. Think of a time that you felt love. Think of something that you're appreciative for. Access that memory. Maybe it's a meal with somebody that you love. Maybe it's a sunset on the beach. Maybe it's your pet. Maybe it's snuggling with your pet at night. What you're doing in these 3 steps is physically changing the rhythm of your heart. You're moving from an erratic pattern to a coherent one. And within minutes, your nervous system regulates, your mind clears, you're probably going to feel your body relax, and your electromagnetic field around you starts to reorganize. You are literally changing your frequency. And that frequency shift, remember, it doesn't just stay inside the body. That field extends several feet, 6 to 8 feet outside of your body. So every person who enters your radius of influence, your little bubble here, receives that coherent signal. You are a transmitter. So the question is, what are you transmitting? Now I want to talk to you about something that goes beyond just the individual practice, because I know what some of you are thinking. Okay, fantastic, heart coherence, great. But what does that have to do with stopping a war? What does that have to do with what's happening in Iran or any other conflict point in the world for that matter? And that's a valid question. The answer is in the numbers. So in the previous video, we talked about the Maharishi effect, and that was where in 1993, a group of meditators were in Washington, D.C. They had a very clear collective intention during their meditation, and violent crime dropped 23% within weeks. Researchers calculated that the number of people needed to produce a measurable effect on a population is the square root of 1% of the population. So I had to calculate these numbers here, so let me read the numbers to you. That literally means that for 1 million people, you only need 100 people in collective coherence. For the entire planet with 8 billion inhabitants, that number is approximately 9,000. 9,000 people in simultaneous heart coherence could begin to shift the collective energetic field of all of humanity. There are more than 9,000 people watching this video, or I hope there will be. So think about that. We don't need to wake everyone up at the same time. We don't need to convince politicians. We don't need regime change. We don't need to win a debate on social media. We just need enough people consciously choosing not to feed the chaos and instead transmitting coherence. And that is within the reach of all of us right now. I want to close with something I hope you carry with you long after this video ends. We are living through one of the most critical moments in human history. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it because it's true. Because critical moments are also the moments of the greatest potential for change. Humanity's been here before. It's not the first time. At the edge of darkness, at the point where everything seems lost. And in every one of those moments, the change doesn't come from the top down. It comes from the inside out. It comes when enough individuals, you, decide that you're not going to let fear be the dominant frequency. When we decide that we can hold a different vision, even when everything around us is screaming chaos, that's what's being asked of us now. Not to be perfect, not to have all the answers, not to put our head in the sand and ignore what's happening. We're being asked to be conscious that when fear arrives, and it clearly will, we see it, we acknowledge it, and we consciously choose not to settle into it, not to project it. We're being asked to practice coherence, not as a spiritual luxury, but as an act of collective responsibility. Because every time you, yes, you and me, anyone that's watching this video right now, anytime we choose coherence over chaos, presence over panic, gratitude over fear, we are changing that field. We are being the signal that others can follow without knowing why they suddenly feel a little bit calmer near you, or a little more hopeful, or a little more capable of thinking clearly. You are a lighthouse, and the world needs lighthouses now more than ever. Do not underestimate what one centered person can do in a world that's lost its center. Do not underestimate what 10 of us can do in a community. Do not underestimate what 1 million centered people connected by the same intention can do on this planet. We only need 9,000. We are the field, and the field can change. Start now, start here, start with you. So if this video reached you at the right time, please share it. Not from fear, but from intention. Negative content gets 6 times more attention than positive content. And this is what we need to share. I'm begging you, please, share this video. Because every person who wakes up to this is one more signal of coherence in our collective field. So please also subscribe to our channel, hit the bell, join this community that understands that the real revolution is a revolution of consciousness. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Welcome to the field.